Welcome to the second episode of Career Mastered Virtual Cafe, where we bring together powerful women thought leaders to discuss topics to advance today's woman. I'm Dr. Lisa Wicker, and I am so pleased that you have joined us this evening. How's everybody doing? I give you time to get ready, bring in your beverages and relax so that you can enjoy the conversation that we have for you this evening. But before we start, I wanted to give you the framework that we're going to operate in this evening. We're starting with the welcome, which is myself at 7 o'clock. And shortly after, I will introduce our wonderful panel. We would then talk and have our discussion about today's subject, which is Reboot, 4 steps to refocus, reclaim, and realign your power as it relates to your career and your life. And so after we have that discussion, we will then go into questions that you may have. As we're talking, I do hope that you will begin to put your questions in the chat so that we can begin to kind of get our thoughts around answering those for you. And then if we do not have enough time within this moments that we have, then we'll answer those questions after within the chat on Facebook. And so I'm excited to be your host this evening. And with our second episode, it tells me that we're on to the right way of communicating in these times. And certainly, as you know, as the coronavirus updates continue to dominate the news, and many of us are facing what we call disruptive changes that we've never experienced before or imagined, we should often get together as a collective to, one, support each other, 2, to just see how we're doing, just to check in on one another, and then to just understand that even though our routines are different, our social lives are different, both physically and mentally, we should be sharing with each other how we can do things maybe differently and or better. And so as a result of what we're going through, we're realizing that we probably are not going to return to normalcy. And what is that now? I mean, it's probably, as we can imagine, no answers just yet as to what that looks like. But the real question is, what will we do ourselves to get back on track? And so this session tonight is about really getting back on track if you're off track, or really transforming to a new track, whatever it may be for you in this moment in time. And so before we begin, I would like to introduce our panel. And I'm going to start with asking each one of our panelists to give their name and their backstory. So I'm just going to actually give you their name, and then when it's their turn, they'll give you their backstory. So we have with us tonight Jackie McWilliams, and Jackie is the commissioner for the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, the CIAA. We also have Angela Hopkins, who is an author of Her One Tribe, as well as an executive here in the healthcare industry. We then have Nicole Johnson Scales, and Nicole is a coach, executive coach. She owns and has founded her own coaching firm, as well as an executive for a major bank. And then we have Jody Treeweiler, who is a media personality and fitness expert in Metro Detroit. And so, ladies, welcome. Hey.
Hey.
And so what I want to be able to do is just turn it over to you. And I'm going to ask you to give your backstory in just a moment. But before I do that, I just want to share with our audience a couple of things. One is that as we start the discussion, we really want you to know that our objective here this evening is to be conversational with you and leave you with some how-tos, whatever we can do to give some nuggets about rebooting. And then just have you think about today. Where are you right now? What are your thoughts right now? What are your needs right now? And what is your purpose, and where can you use that purpose maybe to help other people? Today, more than ever, in this extreme, what I call disorder. We must think differently. That is, have a different mindset. We talked about that in the last episode. And most importantly, we must know without a doubt that we have to reboot and make sure that we have a master plan for our lives and our work. And so we know that as women, particularly women, we are those people that nurture other people. And even though it's a stereotype, it's truth to that. Even in the context of the environment that we're in right now, as women, even more today, in this new order of things, we're cooking daily. Some of us are teaching our children. We've become teachers to the extent that we're also looking at our businesses and trying to decide what we're doing, where we're going. We're even at some of the spaces looking for new jobs because we maybe perhaps have lost a job, or we're thinking about the job that we had and things have changed because maybe that promotion that you were in line for is no longer existing. At the end of the day, my story to you and my thought to you is that right now as women, what can we do to take care of ourselves? And so I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and I'll start with you, Jackie, if you can give your backstory, and then we'll move along.
Sure. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight and to see these amazing women. I think it's a time when we need to be connected, even if we're in different states or different regions. But there's something that brings us together, and that's the work that we get to do every day. I've been in college athletics almost 30 years. I fast tracked. I know I look young, but I fast tracked. But it's a life passion of mine to make impact through college sports. What's interesting is, athletics has been a piece of my life since I was a kid. It was the piece that saved me. It was the piece that gave me an opportunity. It's where I made friendships. It's where I learned how to lead. It's where I learned discipline. And it's helped me through my entire career, from college athletics all the way to getting into the college professional athletics of working and working with student athletes. I do a lot of mentoring and coaching, educating, all those things that all of us do in our careers, but I get to do it in sports. And so it's been a pleasure to be the commissioner for the CIAA. I've worked at the NCAA for almost 10 years. And as you can see, we're really disrupted right now in college sports. So it's challenging. As I told my team today, I can't imagine what it looks like not to have sports, particularly when sports is a place where a lot of us need the rhythm and the ability to show our talents and to use it as a catapult to our education. That's how we get our degrees, a lot of us, through scholarships. And so we're absolutely working through it. I have an amazing daughter. She's 14. She's athletic. She's smart. She's homeschooling herself because I have no idea what she's doing. I just look at the grades and know she's getting it done. But feel extremely blessed to be a part of this with you all tonight. Also, the president of Women Leaders in College Sports is a huge organization, probably over 1,000 members of that organization. And we congregate annually to encourage, empower, to lead. We do programming the entire year to support women in their careers and to ensure they know their missions and their visions so that they can be impactful at the institutions or whatever careers they accept in the realm of college athletics and sports.
Excellent. Very good. And you ask, who are we having on? We have the commissioner. And Angela, if you could introduce and give your backstory.
Sure. Well, my name is Angela Hosking, and I am the Director of Nursing for Large Cancer Institute in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been in the healthcare industry for a little over 20 years, but I started out my career as an English major wanting to be a writer and recognized later in life that I pivoted back to that and became an author 2 years ago. My book is called Woman on Top, Lead Like a Lady Boss. Because I noticed on the leadership shelves, most of the books that I was reading were written by men, and I figured it was time to have a female voice and a perspective. But my backstory really is I've had a wonderful career in both realms, and I think that as many young women come to me and ask me, what do I need to do or what do I need to be? And I say, you can be all the things you want to be. Just turn and pivot as your heart desires. And eventually, everything that leads you up to this path has prepared you for what you're going to do next.
Excellent. And thank you for working on the front lines. We really appreciate it.
I'm Frontline's leadership. I'm not going to take credit for being frontline face-to-face with the patients. That's a whole nother level of commitment, and I am so respectful and in awe of what I've seen lately.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, still thanks for what you do. And Nicole.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Johnson Scales, and super excited to be here and not only share some of my experience with you all, but also to learn from the panel as well. So as Dr. Lisa said, I wear multiple hats like many of you all do as well. I am a senior executive at a regional bank in Chicago area. I started my career in banking as an intern very long ago as a teller. And after many years of being in a sales role and getting my feelings hurt when people would tell me no, I finally found my sweet spot leading community development for our bank. And so I have the honor of leveraging the bank's resources to be able to invest in underserved communities in a way that is relevant and seeks to empower folks who need to have the support and resources to get to the next level in their lives. I'm also an adjunct professor at a university here for graduate students. I teach corporate social responsibility and leading organizational change and helping leaders think through ways to lead their respective teams from a leadership perspective, because one thing that we can always count on is that things are going to change. And so how do we best equip our leadership teams to be able to do that? And then lastly, as I had really spent time thinking through how I wanted to have impact, I created my own executive coaching business for women, uniquely designed to help women create the careers that bring them the professional joy that they're looking for. Oftentimes we are in a position where we started jobs and we've done it for 5 or 10 years, and then we stop and we look back and we say, hey, hold on a second, is this really what it is that I want to do? And so what I wanted to do was serve women in a way that helped them to gain that professional joy. And I'm super excited to be here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Jody, last but not least.
Hi, you might know me as Jody's Fit Life. That's my social media handle. And out of high school, I knew that I wanted to go to college and pursue sports medicine. And I got certified as a fitness instructor in 1993. So you could calculate and do some math there. I did kind of get out of fitness a little bit, and I sold pharmaceuticals until about 2006 when I had a horrible pregnancy. I had preeclampsia, and I actually was on bed rest for so long that I pretty much had to rehab myself to be able to walk, and I could not carry the baby up the stairs. And at that point, I really knew that I wanted to dive back in head first to fitness. And so I just launched back in. I became a certified personal trainer, and I started to just pursue fitness to the point where I knew I loved it. I wanted to help other people. And I ended up becoming the health fitness expert for local Channel 4 here. So I'm on Live in the D several times a month. I was blessed enough to host 3 years of Jody's Fit Life on Comcast. And I've had podcasts off and on. I'm not currently doing that, but I do have my degree again in sports medicine. And then just this month, I became a certified nutritional consultant. Wow. So that I will be able to provide practitioner level supplements to clients and customers. And just my whole passion in life is to help people make better choices and to live better, because even myself being so immersed in this lifestyle, I'm challenged, right? My husband is an excellent cook, and he's presenting me unhealthy meals on a regular basis. So trust me, I don't know any woman who will look you in the eye and say, I am absolutely at my ideal weight ever at any moment in time, right? Because there's temptation just circling around us, and especially in an atmosphere like this, right? We're all in new territory, myself included. So I'm just honored to be considered a peer among these brilliant women, and hoping that I can offer you some encouragement and some inspiration to move forward from this moment in time.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm going to personally give you a round of applause. Thanks for coming. And we're ready to get started in our conversation. First, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor this evening is ITC Holdings Corp. Out of Novi, Michigan. They're a corporate sponsor and a member of the Career Master Diversity and Excellence Program. So we thank them, because without them, we are not able to do the work that we do. And then I'd like to introduce our producer, Rashim Barnett, who is responsible for making sure that we're up and running this evening in the way and fashion that is presented professionally to you. And so I'll start with the first question. I'm going to ask the question to all of you, and it really is about the complexities surrounding the coronavirus and how we as women and families can feel overwhelmed quite quickly. So it's essential to take steps to reassess how we can make a positive contribution towards staying on track about our lives, and including our leadership, which impacts our ability to expand and have tremendous impact over our careers and particularly our families. Now, some say that being able to reboot is basically the definition of restarting, but it's also a definition of how to be smart about advancing our leadership. So I'm asking each of you to give me some of the practical steps that you have taken to reboot during these tumultuous times. And I'll start with Jody. Let's start on that end.
One thing that has been a great blessing is spending more time with the family unit. My older son is 16 and he's typically gone at dinner time. He's got all his sports. He plays football and basketball. And what a joy it has been to sit down at dinner time together every day. And I also pray together with the family. And I just feel like that is one thing that, we're getting back to the roots of what's most important. And to me, there's nothing more important than family, aside from God. Yes. But having that family unit, I hope others are doing that, taking advantage of enjoying meals together and having extra time together. My family also did a murder mystery online that it was just so silly and fun. We have played games. It's been a reset, really. I feel like it's been healing in a lot of ways. The kids know that mom and dad are there every day and they have that security. And I feel like that just getting the family unit back is one really critical part of resetting.
Excellent. And what about you, Nicole?
I think for me, it has given me an opportunity to assess my priorities and to really ensure that it's aligned with my happiness. I recognize for myself that if my priorities and my happiness aren't aligned, that means that I'm not in the driver's seat of my life. And so it gave me an opportunity to just say, okay, based on the things that I think that I need to do, are these the things that make me happy? And if they weren't, I was able to just create some tweaks to move forward. I think the other piece of it is kind of that self-care component, which to Jody's point, I've spent more time with my husband than I have in forever. Being able to have lunch with him and go for a walk in between conference calls. Right, we've got opposite schedules. It's like, oh yeah, I remember why we got married, right? And so just being able to do that, spending time with my daughter who is 14, and really exercising. I had really kind of taken a hiatus from that, but again, just creating it in my schedule where I feel like I have more control has been great. And I think lastly, the thing that this time has allowed me to do is to really get clear on my goals and create strategies, and not just strategies in my head, because sometimes we could, create our goals and our strategies up here, but unless we put it on paper and put some steps in place to be able to achieve it, it really just doesn't get done. It's just kind of more of an idea. And so it's allowed me to slow down and just say, what do you want? And how do you need to get there? And so I've been grateful for the time and the space to be able to do that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And how about you, Angela?
Well, I have the unique perspective of having a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9. And the 9 to 5 is, as you mentioned, frontline healthcare operations. And so I got a very close up view of really what was happening. And that basically pulled me away from the 5 to 9 for the first 4 weeks. So I was very focused on doing everything that I could do as a leader to make sure that I was there for our teams and our patients. And that really, I think it prolonged the processing for me as a person, as an entrepreneur, until I was able to have some quiet time and think. And I really took this time to think, in the rush to return to normal, what is worth returning to? And I had a very much of a realization that I had been quite overcommitted and suddenly found myself without a travel schedule. And I'm used to traveling, keynoting several times a month or doing workshops out of the state several times a month. And that peace and that quiet of the routine every evening with being at home and not having to prepare for another keynote or another workshop gave me some time to do some reflection. So for me, it was, as I ramp back up in 2021, what is it that I'm going to focus on that is both value added and rewarding in my 5 to 9, and how am I going to take the lessons learned in my 9 to 5, which I think were pretty pivotal in making everything more meaningful. So just not rushing, taking time.
Excellent. Excellent. And Commissioner?
I like being at home. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm enjoying the time. I'm a homebody. I am an introvert. That's what I've learned about myself. I'm that ambivert. I can get out and do what I do. I traveled. My calendar was packed. And when this happened, it was clear. Now I'm trying to unpack it with all these conference calls and Zooms, which is learning how to manage your time even in this time. And so how to prioritize, like you all said, what's really important to you. Simone is my ride and die. She's my travel partner. So we always spend time. She's part of my presentation. She's part of my job in my life. And so that hasn't been, this epiphany of like, we get to spend more time together. But it's really, we're just really noticing how much we like to be at home. And we're not like dying to get outside. I mean, we need to walk and do more of those things and exercising, but I think she's doing that well. The other thing I've learned is I just don't have control. You know, we are women who are empowered and we lead, and this is where leaders rise. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah.
You learn how to rise in these moments. You know, you learn how to rise in your homes. You learn how to manage your emotions. You learn how to lead your team and strategize. I watched in the first couple of weeks the stress that other leaders were putting on their staffs and people because of the unknowns, and that doesn't work.
Right.
And so I've learned how just to step back and allow my team and meet them where they are and understand to give them clarity and goals. And so I think that's what I've really have taken hold. How do I lead in such these tragic moments where everybody feels impacted? I have no control over anything except over myself and what I can do to make the lives better for everybody around me.
Right. Well, absolutely. And as we think about, moving forward, let's talk for a moment about personal power. And our personal power is not contingent on our circumstances, as you all know. And our personal power is really contingent upon the moment in time that separates our circumstances from our response. So how we respond to that really is how we show up in our personal power, right? Mm-hmm. And so my question to you, Jackie, is what steps can women take in the midst of their circumstances to create the space needed to move forward in their personal power?
I think that's a great question. For me, and I would tell, women that I'm mentoring or coaching or talking to, some of it, you got to own where you are, right? I got to own the moments of what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm managing, right? So I said, I gave up control. So to think about giving up control and what does that really mean? Means possibly, will I have a job 6 months, right? Will I be able to run the thing this is what I do, and I'm not capable of doing that right now. Will I be able to be a great mother to my daughter in the midst of feeling emotionally strapped, mm-hmm. right? Like I have no control. And so, I think learning how to manage and own what those feelings, emotions are. I journal. I have my core group of women or men or mentors that I talk to. And I'm honest about where I am. If I'm upset or like I had a bad week last week, absolutely. Part of it is what I'm watching, part of it is what I'm seeing, and part is real time of what's going on within my own family dealing with COVID. Mm-hmm. And so how you manage that so that you still hold on to your power, but you're very clear about when you're in those moments that you don't stay in them so long that you lose your power. And that's where I'm trying to manage for myself as I'm trying to lead other people. We all have the power, and you can only give it away if you allow it to be given away, right? So right. How do you sustain that and maintain that the best that you can? And for me, it's owning where I am in those moments that I feel like I've lost some control. And I only stay there a little while, Lisa. I don't stay there long. I get it back so I can reset, so I can be the best mother I can be, so I can be the best commissioner I can be, and really be the best Jackie I can be based on what God has given me to do.
Absolutely. Those are good, absolutely good points, which kind of leads me to the question about power models. And if you own your power and you kind of know, according to Harvard Review, a new power model is becoming integrated in our daily lives just because of what we're going through and how we're operating in our societies or even in the space that we're in. And this kind of sets up a new set of values, if you will, and beliefs that we can go forward. And so power is not just flowing differently. Power is really about people and feeling differently, but also thinking differently about it, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, as I was reading this article, it says like a teenager with her own YouTube channel engages as a content creator rather than a passive recipient of someone else's ideas. Right. And so that's power that person has decided, I'm not going to just be passive and sit there and watch everybody else do, but I'm going to take the power and create my own, right? So using your own career as an example, what solutions would you suggest that can empower women to achieve their full potential? And I'm going to say that again. What solutions would you suggest that can empower women to achieve their own potential? And Nicole, if you can help us with that.
Yeah, so I think that where it all really starts is around purpose. And I think that many of us are unclear of what our purpose is. And our purpose is the thing that we were uniquely designed, specifically created to do, to be able to impact others. And one thing I'll say about purpose is it's different from passion. I think passion is kind of a place where you can look to see where, if that is something that lies within from a purpose perspective, but it's not always your passion, because passion can be fleeting. Think about relationships where we've been in, where we've been so passionate about that other person, right? And then 2 years from now, that person is out of our life. Or think about the time, if you were passionate about singing and all of a sudden you decided, I don't sing that great. One of the things that I heard Jody say is that she started a career from a sports perspective. So she started off being passionate, but the difference is that she got to her why, which made it her purpose.
Right.
She said that her goal was to inspire people to live a better life. That's the why. And so that's how you ensure that your purpose is connected to something greater, is because you understand your why. I think from a purpose perspective too, some of the ways that we can go about thinking through it is to start with where our strengths and talents are. So our talents are the things that we were born with, the gifts that we were born with. And then the strengths are the things that we do well, but we've had to work at it, right? So some people might be great public speakers. That might be one person's talent. Somebody else might be a great public speaker, but they've had to work and they've had to practice. And so I think starting there is really important. I think the second piece of it is really to understand and pay attention to where you gain the most energy. And so we all have interactions where we are just in a flow. When I think about my career, and again, not having the direction at some point, just kind of feeling my way through, when I look at the thread of all the things I'm doing, it is tied to my purpose, which is to leverage the resources and gifts and talents that I have to enrich the lives of others. And so when I think about my corporate job, which is to leverage the bank's resources to help people's lives get better. When I think about teaching graduate students who are working adults like all of us, to help them to become better leaders, that's something that is fulfilling to me. When I think about coaching the women that I coach, knowing that I'm a small part of their journey and their breakthrough, that brings me energy. And so I had to pay attention to all of that so that I could be really clear about my purpose. And then the other thing that I'd encourage people to think about too is, who is it that you're going to impact? So it's what we're good at, it's what gives us the most energy, and who is it that we want to impact? And it doesn't always have to be this altruistic, I'm going to start a nonprofit and change the world. You could be a great, musical teacher, and you can impart your gift in other students to be able to give them the resources and confidence that you need. My husband is passionate about basketball, right? But now that he's older, he can't play it like he used to. And so he started his own basketball training business because he wanted to leverage that passion in a business. But what he has recognized is that he's using basketball skills to build the character skills in these kids. And when he gets feedback from the parents, yeah, the kids might get better. Maybe their defense or their offense is better. But what they talk about is the confidence that he has instilled in them, the way they've been able to problem solve. And that's when you know that you are really, truly living your purpose, is that when you can really see the end work of the work that you're doing. And so when I think about how we live our potential and our fullest lives, it's really getting clear on who we were uniquely designed to be. And don't worry about the how. That's the thing that bullies us. That's what a coach told me. He's like, you're getting bullied by the how. The how always bullies us, because we're like, well, how am I going to make a living of it? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Don't let the how bully you. Just move forward, take one step. And if that's what you're meant to do, the resources and the ideas and the creativity will come.
Excellent. Excellent. Absolutely. I've written my notes. So ladies that are with us tonight, if you have your journal, please make sure they're with you, because we got some great nuggets here. So as you talk about the power models, really, how do we focus there and use those models so that we can refocus maybe where we're going? And so I believe, Jody, I would like you to tell us, like, we've heard that focus on things that you can influence and ignore the rest. Well, we can't make the virus go away any sooner, but we can focus on things that are in our power to control, right? So in the midst of this disruption, how best can we refocus our minds and our behaviors mentally and or physically to help shape our future? And why is the mental part of that so important to refocusing?
That's so important right now for everyone. What you're talking to yourself, your internal thoughts, what you're saying, it's all manifesting physically, right? That anxiety, don't think that if you're sitting there all anxious that your kids don't know that you're anxious. So for me, I am a spiritual person. And I took all that right to God immediately, because I don't need to carry that burden. And none of you need to carry that burden, right? So whatever you need to do to release the anxiety is step one, so that you can clear yourself mentally. And now you're dealing with a clean slate. And now that you're dealing with a clean slate, you need to look at the body and the mind together. I encourage every one of you, if you're not, that's okay. But starting tomorrow, you're going to schedule a regular exercise regimen. You need to do this for yourself. I don't know if you realize, we all know exercise is good for you. Everybody knows that. Studies have been done over the years, but I went to the Forbes website earlier just to get some real concise reasons why exercise is a benefit. Number one, it's an anti-inflammatory. It reduces your risk of cancer, diabetes, hundreds of other diseases. That's amazing. It lowers your risk of heart attack and stroke. It slows the aging process from a cellular level inside your body. It triggers growth of new brain cells. Did you know that? Exercise triggers, that's amazing. It treats and prevents depression. And you're lying if you say you haven't had at least one day where you just maybe didn't even want to get out of bed during all this. We've all been there. I felt that way. You felt that way. We all have. Exercise helps get the endorphins. It gets you out of that slump. It also decreases your risk of dementia. So given the group of women that's here, you are all very intelligent women. You understand the benefits of exercise. You owe this to your body. And none of these benefits are going to be realized if you don't do it consistently. You can't exercise once a week. And the other thing, you really do need to break a sweat. Because I'll hear people telling me, I went for a walk, and that's awesome. Walking is amazing. It's wonderful. However, you're not going to get the cardiovascular benefits if you really don't get, that feeling when you're right on the edge and I'm going to break a sweat. That's where you need to be. So I just want to encourage you, and there is no condemnation. If you haven't exercised one day through this whole quarantine, right, that's okay, because condemnation does not facilitate change. Motivation does. So let's get motivated and say, you know what? I'm going to do better starting tomorrow. You've been successful in your career. Now let's be successful with your health. So I encourage every one of you to get that schedule out, put it in your schedule like an appointment that you wouldn't skip, you wouldn't no-show, right? That's what exercise needs to be.
Okay. Well, tomorrow for me, I'm getting my schedule out because I have been naughty. All right. Absolutely.
Condemnation.
So, okay. I'm going to refocus in that space. I have to. So we're in this middle of the significant redrawing, if you will, of the way that society is kind of looking at how we go forward. And since we have no map to how this is going to actually turn out, right, in the order of things, and we're all relying on our ability actually to construct whatever framework we think it is. I've read where it's like a framework of explanation. That's what we're doing in our minds, right? We're trying to explain how this is all working, right? And that's useful, but somewhat satisfying. It doesn't give us everything we need. And so I'd like to ask you, Angela, what suggestions can you provide on how women can go about the business of intentionally realigning their time and their skills towards shaping their futures more effectively? And mind you, I said effectively, didn't say efficiently, but effectively.
Well, I think most of the people probably listening to this tonight are high-performing women. They're women that are driven and have a sense of purpose and want to learn all the things. And oftentimes, when there is a crisis, what do we women do? We stand up and we say, let me take it all. Let me be the person to handle all of the drama, and I will not only take over your situation, but I will take over the family situation. I will take over the work situation. And I think we catch ourselves spinning and maybe just really getting very busy rather than making sure what we're doing is actually going to move us forward in helping us to figure out what we're going to do next. And so for me, I had to sit with some time to be quiet and really re-examine my values, really re-examine where I was spending my time, and was I spending too much of it watching the news, or too much of it, checking email, or too much of it not doing things that would help myself, my business, my company, my family move forward. And then really just backed off my 2020 goals, those big 2020 goals that, by second quarter, I was going to be doing this or doing that, and really started making micro goals. And as small as, what are we going to get done this week? What is the one thing that I need to get done this week that will help my family or myself have more of a sense of control? And giving some grace and some allowance that it doesn't have to, we can't quite maybe project the 6 months or the 4 quarters out without understanding what constraints are around us. But what we can control is where we focus our time and our energy. And we have to get very, very instrumental about that. I like Jody's idea about scheduling, because I like to block time for creative content work. I like to block time for doing the busy work, with the housework and things like that. And I think that helps you to be more effective and quiets your brain, gets it out of that worried cycle when you're doing nothing but ruminating and staying busy, but not really moving yourself forward.
Absolutely. And our audience is actually talking with us. And I'm just going to say for a minute some of the things that they're saying. Michelle Brown is saying that a period of disruption is an opportunity for a new habit. And I would agree with that. Wouldn't you ladies agree with that? We also have Rachel Downs, who says that The Unpurposed Person by Kevin McCarthy is a great book to gain clarity on purpose. And he used a very simple bracket system to develop clarity and identify your purpose. So they're giving us some great tips as well. So that's good engagement. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about reclaiming, and right now we are actively creating a new information layer around things like social distancing, mask, working from home, teaching and educating our kids, and agility with enterprises, and our innovative methods. We've all come up with creativity and innovation that I'm sure that we otherwise might not have had the reflective time to do. And so as we create these new layers for ourselves, I'm reading a lot of articles that are really teaching us about the vanishing reality, the reality of things the way we knew it. It's just not happening, right? And so my question really for you, Nicole, is that life returning as we know it is not going to happen, right? And so as women leaders, what would be a reclaiming framework, like reclaiming some of the things that maybe we had that would help drive the results to lead to performance in new ways and in faster ways? So It might not be the way it was, but we might be able to reclaim some of the things we had so that we can drive forward to something faster or better. And so just want to know kind of some thoughts on some steps that we can reclaim and reframe what we do.
And Dr. Lisa, I'm going to think about this question a little bit differently. And I'd like to piggyback on something that Commissioner Jackie mentioned earlier before when I think about the word about reclaim and, getting back something that we had before, one of the things that came to mind when I think about how women need, how do we get better, more effective, and become better leaders, better moms? One of the things that comes to mind is the question of who have you relinquished your power to,
Yeah.
if you have.
Yes.
And is it a person, right? Is it a place, like a
Mhm.
job, or is it a thing,
Yes.
like a situation, or coronavirus? Have you lost your job and the fear has kept you stuck? Is there a situation at work where you feel like you can't push through? I've been in situations where I have been where I have felt like I could not push through the challenges that I had. And it took a coach helping me to understand, one, that I was thinking like a victim. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's not cute. I don't like that at
Right.
all. And it was like, wait a minute. And you're right, because I had relinquished my power. I had felt hopeless and my confidence was off, and I forgot what I was made of and who I was about and what my strengths were. And I didn't recognize myself. And so I offer this as a way to reclaim who we are and to just call out what it is that we have relinquished our power to. There's so much power in just that, in the self-awareness and recognizing where we have relinquished our power. And I say relinquish because nobody can take your power from you. You have to give it to them. And that's something that we have to remember when we're feeling helpless and we feel like we've not been able to push through, is that people can't do anything to us that we don't allow them to. And so I'd encourage women to identify what we've relinquished our power to, and then build a strategy to help you move forward and move through it, because you absolutely can. You are made with all the resources that you need to be the woman that you want to be. But what we have to do is set up some new habits, like we talked about before. We just call out the experiences that we have, and then we just decide that we're going to break through and move forward and do something different and much, much better.
I love it. So I heard some things in there that I'm writing down. Like you say, we can't become a victim. We have to decide what we're relinquishing, like think back about it, reflect on it, to make sure we understand what we're doing ourselves, right? I love it. Any comments from any of you other women? What are your thoughts? Any thoughts about what she said, if you'd like to add to that? Otherwise, we'll go to the next question.
I would say, just to add to what she said, as you were talking, I was just thinking about, for me, this has been a time for healing for me as well. Mm-hmm. I think I've moved so fast in my job. My work is what I do. When I'm at home, it's what I do. And I don't take enough time to stop and reflect on things that may have hurt me in the past, right? I've gone through counseling, I've done all that, but there's still some things that are lingering that I haven't dealt with. In this time of being still, I think that's why last week, and maybe it's like every other week, I'm going through these emotional up and down moments, because I have so much more time to think about. And when I get in those moments, as Nicole says, I know that I'm giving up some of my power. I'm giving my power up to anger. I'm giving to resentment. I'm giving up to those things that just really don't matter in the core of it all, but it has been embedded in me for 51 years, right? Sure. So I'm learning how to let some of those go. And, just like Jolie, it's part of my faith. We have a mission. My faith is the base of the mission, because everything that I do is based on what God wants me to do and how I'm going to do it to impact where he wants it to be impacted. So I have to get back there. But when I'm all over the place, like what happens, because we get so busy, we tend to forget what matters the most. And some of it is you really got to deal and own some of those things that help or don't move you through your power to be better. Right. Yes. So we're right there on the edge, but we're still dealing with, I'm mad, I'm resenting, some of those things that we don't even think about until we sit still enough for it to come to surface.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent. I love it. Any comments from other ladies? If not, I'm going to ask you, Jackie, while you're talking here, to take us into the subject of leadership. And it's really about leadership versus job titles. Mm-hmm. And we know that leadership is not defined by a job title. Yes, some people feel that their title represents it all, right? And as we talk here in the Career Cafe, I just want to suggest that we're talking about accelerating our leadership. We're also talking about what we can do in our own space, but also what we can do to impact others that will be positive, right? And so, yes, some people feel that their titles represent it all, and it really is about gaining the appropriate perspective, skills, and to be your authentic personal styles that get the results that matter. It's not the title, right? So, what would be a smart approach for a woman to ensure that her title doesn't go to her head when she finally gets to that space that she may have thought that's her there, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's a job. It's part of the career path.
I love that question because I have to do a presentation with a group of women next month. And actually, I'm doing it on leadership and kindness.
Oh, wow.
Lead in kindness.
I like
that's been my hashtag. Just be kind, be nice, stop being nasty. Right? I mean, just because I'm the commissioner doesn't mean that I cannot communicate with people in a way that makes them feel like they can engage. Just because I'm the commissioner doesn't mean I can't respond to you. You might have to go through some, but I'm always going to respond to you. So in the being kind, I say keep loving. The core of who we are is to love. It doesn't matter. We talk about diversity and inclusion, LGBTQ space. At the core of it, whether you believe it or not, you still should love people and meet them where they are. Right? Mm-hmm. Be intentional about your relationships. As a commissioner or leader, you got to be intentional about who comes to the table and what tables you're sitting at, right? What impact you're going to make and what impact you want to leave behind. I mean, so I think it's important in being kind and negating negative energy. Yes. I don't have time for all of that. I'm trying to shuffle and shake and move and do the best that I can. So all the negative energy, you've got to recognize when that's around so you can move that aside. That's leaders teach leaders to do that, right? Get rid of the energy, be intentional, keep loving. And the last one is real simple. Find you a song and dance. Because great leaders will shimmy shake across your meeting room. I do it all the time with my staff. It brings energy, but that's my personality. Everybody doesn't have that, but you got to find that sweet spot of what being kind means in leadership to teach others to be kind in leadership. Otherwise, it becomes a rotation and a systematic problem that you're leading bad leaders to be bad leaders. Yes. Just like parents. Parents teach you to be that way and you continue to be that way. Somebody's got to stop it and change it. And so that's how I see, Lisa, just be kind, be a kind leader, be loving.
I mean, and that it sounds so simple. Yeah. However, you know, when you're in environments, sometimes you don't see the kindness.
Yeah.
You know, the comments from the panel.
That was amazing.
The word that keeps popping up in my mind is compassionate leadership. And some of the things that I think that women leaders bring to the table, oftentimes a little differently, is that compassion.
Yeah.
And it's lacking. It's especially lacking in something like this, where you have to really understand how it's affecting the core of the psyche of the people that you lead.
Yeah,
that's true. And I think, Jody, you were going to add to that as well.
I love how she said, have a song and dance. Because to me, the word she didn't use that I was seeing all over what she said is humility.
Yeah.
Nobody gets to the top alone, ever, right? Whether you think it was God, other people, there's a whole group of people that got you to where you are. And yeah, just to, piggyback on what you said, that so much humility there. And also, I love listening to you talk because you have gorgeous teeth. I'm like mesmerized by
her smile is
Thank you, girl.
It is. It's such a good one.
No, she does. Absolutely.
I can just watch you talk the whole time. It's amazing.
Well, see, I like that because that was very kind, Jody.
That was kind. Thank you.
Absolutely. So you guys have taken me to the next question, so I'm going to skip it because I think you've also added, which I was going to ask, what were some of the key success factors that we, need to consider? And so you've already said it. I'll say you've said kind, humility, right? And compassion. Are there any other success factors? And I think, Angela, that's your question. So if you could help us with that a little bit.
I think the number one success factor to a great leader is self-awareness. Yeah. I don't think that you can lead a team or lead people effectively unless you understand where you're coming from with your values and what's important to you and what created your belief system and how you operate, because that's where it starts. And then being able to have integrity and share the truth despite, the uncomfortability, to be able to be decisive, not to not to not make a decision because you're afraid you're going to make the wrong decision, but make the best decision that you can make, making sure that you are not trying to show that you know everything, that you pull the key stakeholders in and you ask the people who know best how to answer that question, and then you lean to their guidance. I also think a leader, eats last. I love to say that a leader eats last. You are there to be in front of your people, and you are there to serve your people. And getting into leadership for any other reason other than a drive to serve is it's a power play, and it's not true leadership in my mind.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts, Nicole? You want to add, or any thoughts? Otherwise, we'll move on. And I'm also asking our audience to begin to get your questions together, because we will begin to start to take some of those. But some of the comments, I just like to stop for a minute and just tell you some of the comments that's coming. Karen Lawrence says that you ladies are spot on regarding kindness and compassion. I work with too many women in leadership that are downright nasty because they have made it to the top. This needs to be retaught. This needs to be taught more often. Right? Ani Walker, who goes to Winthrop University, says those soft skills are so essential. And then Margarita Turner, Marketa Turner says, so there's definitely a difference between boss and leader. Yes. And how does making sure defining these roles and living it is a direct reflection on having a successful career? So I think that's the question. How does making sure defining these roles and living it is a direct reflection on having a successful career? Right? Any thoughts?
Yeah. So when you guys are so today on a call, one of our athletic directors said, "How can I be a part of the gladiators?" Because we call the CIAA gladiators. That's what I call my team. It came from because there were people in my membership or alumni who said, "You are like Olivia Pope for the CIAA."
I love it.
So we have created our own little space of who we are. We're hashtag CIAA gladiators. I'm their Olivia Pope, and I trust them enough to do the work. Because if you think about Olivia Pope, she trusts her team, right? She got in when she needed to, but she trusted them to go get. So when the athletic director, I said, "No, you can't be a part of this group this way, because what we do here is to get you to the bottom line." Right? Yes. You don't need to see how we got there. You just need to see the result. So It takes a special team right here to get that done. And I think as part of being leaders, or a boss or a leader, is really important to how you engage your team to help you get to the end result. And part of your team is watching you because of your own mission, your values, and your authenticity.
Yes.
Because what I find is, particularly with women leaders, as we say, some are just real nasty, and their own insecurities end up getting projected on you, right?
Yes.
And so that becomes a problem. So I do my best not to project whatever I'm feeling on the rest of my team. Because if I say I'm leading and we have end goals, the goal is to get them to perform at their best. And so I've got to have that trust for them as my gladiators to get the work done. And I don't think that happens all the time at all in organizations. So I do think there's work that needs to be done. And I think you got to call people where they are.
Yeah.
If you're nasty to me, I'm going to be real kind when I tell you how nasty you are. That you're going to be much kinder the next time you speak.
Exactly.
To me, right?
Exactly. Right. Point on. Spot on. I love it, because if to me, I believe, and I know I've learned over a period of time that the gift of honesty is so important.
Yes.
And if you can give that gift to another woman, especially women, as we're talking about women, the better there will be for it. They may not like you at that moment, but that honesty is important for their growth.
Yeah.
And so as we go through and talk about empowerment, because part of this is how do we empower ourselves as we empower others? Jody, I'd like to ask that when reclaiming your own personal power, what can women do to support other women as well? And John Maxwell says that leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others.
What is so cool after I thought about this is you just said my very first response, which was honesty.
Yes.
Because when you're honest with other people, you're offering them a gift. So going through this whole quarantine period, if you just keep faking it and putting on the rosy glasses and telling everybody you're fine, you're doing the other woman a disservice, because then it makes her bad day it makes her feel guilty about it, right? You need to give other people license and just say, you know what, I'm having a horrible day. I have had my mom, who's my best friend, will call me on the phone and she says, I feel depressed. So I send her funny pictures. And I won't let up unless I get a laugh out of her either. Because I'm like, now I'm taking it on as my mission. Now that you shared that with me and you were honest, I'm going to do everything I can to try to help you feel better. So admit a bad day. I think that's important. And just, don't paint an unrealistic picture of what's going on. If you're having a tough time, be vulnerable, because vulnerability connects us as women. Yes. And I'm going to share a vulnerability of my own. So being a fitness expert, I always have wanted my body to just be perfect. Mm-hmm. And some years back, I started to see cellulite on my legs, and I was mortified because I'm already eating so healthy. I'm working out 6 times a week. I went into a depression. I thought, I don't know what I can do. And I started having nightmares that I was going to the bathroom in public. I'm talking 3-4 times a week, I would have this nightmare. And finally, when I was talking to a therapist, it came out and I said, oh my God, it's because I have cellulite. And I feel like if people knew, they would see that about me and I would be a phony. How could I be a fitness expert and have cellulite? And I'm sharing this with all you now because I realize this is going to connect us, because now you can trust me because I'm being honest. Yes. I am not perfect. And the goal never was to be perfect.
Yes.
Right? So just hearing that from other women, I believe it draws us closer. And it can empower you and it can bond us and just let you know we're being honest, we're being authentic, we're supporting each other, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think that's great. Any other comments from the panel?
Thank you for confessing that. I have that issue too.
It's a horrible dream to have, I'll tell you that. It's horrible.
I just wanted to add, and I have lots of cellulite, by the way. But I just wanted to add, I think somewhere along the lines back in the day, and I'm 53, so around the same age as many of you, we were fed the line that there's not enough room for women at the top, and there's only a few select positions, and you've got to fight and claw and get up there. And when you get up there, you better burn that bridge because that next woman is coming after you. And that could not be further from the truth. The reality is, as we all know, that our network and our building of relationships and our helping other people is how you get opportunities. And so the more of us that get those opportunities and help other women, we all win. Yeah. So every time that we see somebody else getting something that we want to achieve, it's an opportunity for us to share in her accolades and aspire to be that. So I think we were kind of fed a lie or a mistruth or something that we need to help that next generation recognize and say, this is really the way it works.
Yeah.
And we're beginning to build our own recognition and our own, group that we're going to help bring other women up. I always say you stand on the shoulders of the woman that came before you, and you turn around and you lean and you pull a woman up behind you as well.
Awesome. It's an absolute must. We need to teach that more. In terms of, you don't get ahead alone. And so at the end of the day, when you look back and actually no one is following you, you shouldn't wonder why.
That's right.
So as you guys are talking about, I'm thinking about networking and the group that we have here with the Career Master Women's Leadership Network. We have over 1,000 women that have signed up now to this private group. And the idea really is to not just be in a group, but to actually use the networking capability that's here. And sometimes we take things for granted, but I want to ask you, how important do you think cultivating diverse relationships has been to your career? And perhaps whose shoulder did you stand on? And I'll say that with a pause for a minute. So inside of this group, I've met someone from India, and tomorrow, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do a Zoom with her for the people there. And that's just through this network. And so the idea is, our spaces are limited because maybe perhaps we haven't put the lenses on to go where we can see, but then when we get there, we see further. And so I just got to ask, what is networking to you, and perhaps whose shoulders have you stood on? Anybody?
Dr. Lisa, I'll start. One of the things about networking that I think is so important is for people to recognize that it is not transactional, that it is really about building true and genuine relationships. I had 2 calls today. 2 people reached out to me because they said, hey, I'd like to help you and I'd like for you to help me. And the first call that I had, the woman, she kind of shared what she did. She wanted to know what I did. And you could tell that she really wanted to understand what my goals were and how she could help advance them. The second call I had today, the person was really clear what they wanted out of me. And I'd say of the 30-minute call, 28 minutes was of her talking about what she wanted from me. And then there was kind of like this offhanded, okay, so how can I help you? And I could even tell, that she wasn't even listening. And so what's really important about networking, I think, is that we need to go into it looking for a relationship. When I meet people and I connect with people, I always ask them, what can I do to help you? And it's an opportunity for me to leverage kind of my resources to help them to get to where they want to be. But it also is an extension of the relationship to say, this is not meant to be transactional. This is meant to be something that we both can benefit from. So I'd encourage people to look at networking as a way of building relationships. I know sometimes it can feel intimidating, and the word networking makes particularly introverts concerned, but it really is about building meaningful relationships where you are helping one another to reach your respective goals. And it might be today when you can help somebody, it might be 3 months from now when they can help you. But if you're building the relationship, a true relationship, then the networking becomes a conduit for you to be able to help one another, and they can help you.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts, ladies? Raise your hand if you'd like to talk.
Yeah, so for me, it's managing the capacity of networking. I just can't do one more like that. I just can't, and I really try. People know if you reach out to me, I will do all, because I know I work in sports, but I do so much more than sports, right? So our conference is an athletic conference, but we do so much impact. We work with minority women-owned businesses. We do high school education day. We work with college students. We've got all these, and everybody feels like they have the capacity to manage what I do. Right. And so you get on the call and they're not even prepared to have the conversation, like Nicole is saying, right? They know what they want to bring to you, but they're not really asking you what you need to even start building that relationship. So it's always capacity in the net. Because I would say I can't stand networking. It drives me crazy because I really believe in authentic relationships. I don't believe in transactional. We can all pass out cards, but what happens after that, right? And a lot of times for me, it's just capacity. I have good intent, but sometimes I just can't get to it the way, and I may in 6 months. So I'm still learning how to manage that for myself as a leader, because I know how important it is, like Nicole said, but just having the intuition and praying discernment on every relationship or connection that's made to determine whether it's value add and added value.
Right. I agree. And any other thoughts? I'm going to add mine after I let you ladies give your opinions about this subject.
I was just going to add on to what Dr. Jackie said too around that discernment. I think what's really Commissioner Jackie. Let me get that title right. I think the really important thing that helped me from a networking perspective too is that I had to get really clear on what my goals were. And once I understood what my goals were, it helped from a discernment perspective. But I think when we aren't intentional about networking, it can take us kind of by the nose, right? Where it's just like you're all over, but you're really not getting these meaningful relationships out.
Right.
And so I agree with everything that you said. And then having that priority piece has helped me from a discernment perspective, because if it feels one way, then I'm probably gonna move it around a little bit.
Right. And whose shoulder did you stand on? Can you remember anybody in particular that stands out that reminds you that networking was worth it?
Gosh, it's so many people. There's been so many people that I have gone up to. I think about Melody Hobson of Ariel Investments, who's been, I had to get the nerve up to be like, I think you're great. Can I say hi? And, giving me the time and the capacity and allowing me to tap into her network. It's not other leaders that I think have just they understand the value of the networking component, and they have just facilitated introductions for me and connections, and I've done the same for them. So it's almost too many to name.
I get it though. I mean, that was a good example. Absolutely. I think about what you said, getting the nerve to do that. Like I teach a class on networking. And there's I call it 3 components: the good, bad, and ugly. And so when you understand what each one of those stand for, and then you look in the mirror to see which one of those you've been, okay, in terms of networking, you really start to sit back and think when you're in a pool of people or at an event or wherever it may be that there's a networking opportunity, it really makes you stop before you begin whatever process it is you're going to do to try and connect to that person, to ask yourself the question, am I being good, bad, or ugly in the networking relationships? And so anybody in particular you stood on, Jody, in terms of networking, or what do you think about networking?
Oh, I love networking. I love people. I love meeting people. Every single time that I was a guest on Live in the D, I got to sit in the green room, and I would always introduce myself to the other guests and just get to know everybody. And a lot of times there would be famous people and actors, actresses. And one guy in particular, his name is Greg Russell, and he used to host the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and he had a show on TV 20 in Detroit, and he's a movie reviewer. He's a movie critic. Sweetest man ever. And he ended up telling me his story, and we connected, and he ended up connecting me with friends of his through Comcast that were looking for a health fitness show. And I literally had the lunch where I sat down and the person sat across from me and said, how would you like to have your own TV show?
Oh, wow.
Now, maybe not for everybody, but for me, that was a dream come true. And it was like a complete pinch me moment, but without the networking, through Live in the D and meeting Greg and that would have, and let me tell you, if they had interviewed 1,000 women, I don't think I would have gotten the job. Yeah. But God put me in the right place at the right time. And it was all a result of networking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the point is, I will say on this, and I'll see if Angela, you might have a comment on this as well with networking. I want to talk about this for a minute because our audience is saying, some of the ladies are saying they need mentors, and some of the ladies are saying that, they have a question about networking. But before I give that question, the comment that I have about networking is something you said, Jody, is questioning whether or not we are that person that should, no, I think it was you, Nicole, being comfortable with having the ability to ask the question that somebody is asking. I don't know why my phone is ringing, but I thought I shut it down.
Is somebody in your network calling you?
Well, how about that?
Call her right now.
It's actually my son, so that's all good. That's being a mother, right? We women multitask, so we got to go going on. But the bottom line is, in terms of that, we question ourselves about someone that we think is higher or at a place where we can't reach, and whether we should network with that person or whether that person is going to be amenable to us. I just like to talk about that for a moment because I ended up having Earl Grey Sr. Be a mentor for me. And part of that process was, having the opportunity to connect. And you never know what people will do if you ask. If you don't ask, it may never happen. So any thoughts about measuring up when we don't think that we're measuring up to be connected with certain people?
I have a point about that. When I was launching my book last year, I challenged myself to reach out to 5 well-known authors to ask for them if they would consider reviewing it. And these were people that I had followed, that I had commented on, that I looked up to. I mean, I had been a big fan. And, I laughed when I didn't. I thought, no one's going to respond. And actually, an author that I end up now, I know her very well, Dory Clark. She's a best-selling nonfiction author, reached back out and said, I'd love to read your book, and read it and provided a blurb about it. And then I ended up going to a mastermind with her, and she introduced me to other people. So I remember thinking of the mindset, that's never going to happen. But when you put yourself out there and you just try anyway, right? And it's genuine, authentic. It was people that I had for years been, hugely influenced by, she felt proud that I asked her to do that. So I think try. I think don't ever, at one point there were where you were at, right? And so I think we also need to know that when people reach out to us and say, oh my gosh, do you have 10 minutes to let me talk to you? We need to remember that as well too.
Absolutely. I totally agree. We actually have some questions, and one of them is from Marquetta Turner. She says, I'm not sure if this has been addressed because I joined the call a little late, but I have a 3-part question. And she says, when you are networking, how do you stand out in the room? I'll start with that one. Anybody want to take that on? When you're networking, how do you stand out in the room?
Sometimes I'm the only one, so it's obvious I'm the only
Yes.
one, or I'm the only woman of color.
Yes.
It's gotten better. So, I think as we're talking about networking and, my challenges with networking in my career, a lot of it has been because of my own fear and anxiety of how people will accept me because of some experiences, right? And so I've had to learn and be coached and coach myself on having the confidence of just recognizing who I am and what I bring when I walk into the room, and how I use the gifts and in my smile or my conversation or whatever makes me uniquely different than anybody in the room to navigate in the space. But honestly, I do not like networking. I don't like networking events. I don't like it, but I have to. I'm in it all the time. And so it is actually a challenge for me, more so than it is for other people.
Yes.
I admire folks like, Joey, you can go in a room and you can introduce. I have plenty of friends that do that. And I'm just wowed, because I can get there at some point, but it takes me the point of, like, why do they want to know me? Or why do I really want to know them? And they could be somebody who can help me on the next deal or something. And so I have to learn again how to just manage myself in those spaces. But I stand out because just I'm the only Black commissioner female in my division. And it's obvious. And so I'm just known.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Any other thoughts, ladies?
I have a thought on that. I think, do you guys remember what DVDs are? Have you heard of those? I made an exercise DVD back in the day. And when I was first invited to be a guest on Live in the D, this is before they made me the fitness expert, I brought one of my DVDs with my resume and a business card, and I handed it out aggressively. And I said, hey, if you ever need me to do anything, this is my DVD. This is what I'm about. I also like a picture on your business card because I think it connects people. They'll remember who you are. It doesn't have to be only real estate agents that have a picture on the business card, but it'll help them remember you. And just having something like that. And I know now with technology, you can even put a business card on your phone and you tap phones with somebody.
Yes.
But now, nowadays, I don't know how we're close to it. It was something as a leave away to help them remember you, I think is really critical.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, I'll share that I don't believe that you need to stand out. I think you have to be authentically you, and you will stand out according to who you are. And as I said, I teach this good, bad, and ugly. Sometimes I've seen where people are networking and they're trying to stand out and they're overdoing it. And they're just getting on your last nerve at an event. Like your eyes are not even locking with them. You're like talking to somebody else in another corner and they're standing right in front of you. And the reason that is because they're overdoing it, right? And they're trying to get your attention, but they haven't decided before they got to this event or wherever you are, basically what they're trying to accomplish, right? And so I think at the end of the day, you really have to sit back and not try so hard, but to just be yourself, right? And one of the college students, and this next question is, as a college student, this is Ani Walker. As a college student, networking has been a heavily emphasized subject throughout my college career. As we are beginning a new normal, do any of the panelists have any advice on how I can continue to pursue authentic networking relationships while fully virtual? That's a good one.
One of the people that reached out, one of the calls that I had today, the person reached out to me via LinkedIn. And she didn't just send, the creepy, I always think they're creepy when they're just like, I'd like to join your network, but you don't never ever really know why. You're like, why you want to join my network? But it was with a nice note, and it said, you know what, I saw your website. Here's what I do. I'd love to see if there's a way that we could connect and support one another. And so, that was another way in this kind of virtual environment to be able to meet people. Some people are going to respond, some people aren't, but you've got to have the courage, just like Angela said, to reach out to people, but also be prepared to offer resources. And I think sometimes young people think like, oh gosh, what can I offer Dr. Lisa? But it could be, here's how you can think about your social media. There's always things that can you can offer one another. You just have to listen for ways in which you can support. So I think LinkedIn is a really good platform. if you have a really good message and it's meant to be intentional and a two-way opportunity, I think that's a good way for people to do it in the virtual environment.
Absolutely. I love it.
I was
Well,
going to also
go ahead, Angela.
on comment on their posts. If they put an article on, comment on their post what you liked about it, what inspired you. Start to build that relationship and that rapport of being somebody that is interested in what they're putting out there before you send that in mail. I think would hey, I'm so and so, and I've been following you and I've been reading what you've been writing, or Dr. Lisa, I've been reading Career Mastered, and I just really like this article, and that I think shows that it's more than just an ask to connect. It's I really want to connect with you because there's something that you have that I'm interested in learning more about.
I love it. I love it. So one of the last questions here, I believe, on networking is, how do we get other women to see us as an ally and not as a threat or negative competition? That's pretty interesting. So, I mean, we're still talking about refocusing and rebooting, all of that is a part of you and how you show up, right? So this person, and I believe it's, let's see, it's Marquetta Turner says, how do we get other women to see us as an ally and not as a threat and negative competition? Anybody want to take that on?
I have an interesting perspective there.
Yes. I
would never think that because I don't look at other women as a threat. So a lot of the times you're projecting your own thoughts and feelings onto that. So maybe she is in a position where she might feel threatened by other women. So that could just be some introspection. And, you can't control how other people choose to feel or choose to react. All you can do is control what you're sending out there and your actions and moving forward. And I think you just stay authentic, stay positive. And try to bury all that, because like we talked about earlier, it's all about lifting people up and like being celebrating other women's successes. Like, yes. That's amazing. I don't know if you guys know, Karen Drew is one of the news anchors at Channel 4, and she offered me one of my first interviews when I was first hosting Jody's Fit Life. And she told me that back in her career, she interviewed Oprah. And she's this young, nothing reporter, and Oprah sat down with her after the interview was over and spent time just mentoring her and giving her some advice. And she rose to the challenge with her career. So, you really aren't going to ever be able to control other people. It all boils down to what you're giving out. And, that's kind of deep, but it's true.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And like you say, sometimes you're in positions where people feel threatened, and maybe at the end of the day, you might want to just kind of look at, why that is, and then try to make the change in some perspective. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Lisa, I do think it is about how you show up and the energy that you give off.
Yes.
If I came in mean face, mean looking, why would people want to approach me? I probably do look intimidating, right? Yeah. So how I show up in rooms, how I show up in meetings, how I show up in my board, how I show up with my staff, and even my daughter. Yes. That energy, they feel it, they see it. People know when I'm not having a great day. And people know when I'm having an amazing day. Most of my days, I hope, are more amazing than not good days. But the energy you give off, it can show. We have 6 female presidents in our conference.
Wow.
Out of 12. That's never in the history ever happened. And I can tell you, all of them are empowering. They are confident. They're leaders. And even if they have moments of insecurity, they never project that on each other, nor they not project it on me. Mm-hmm. And so they show up giving the energy that makes you want to be in their presence and welcomes you. Like they welcome you, even if you don't want to. They make students talk to them. And it's just something that I continue to learn from them and watch them navigate as women, because oftentimes you don't see that, right? We don't see it enough. And so I do think there are some amazing women that are projecting great energy and bringing other women along the way.
Absolutely. And I think I read recently about, Forbes, the report for the Fortune 500, that 37 women now are CEOs, right? Now, that is supposed to be exciting, but truly, based upon the numbers, it's still low. And particularly women of color don't show up in that. So at the end of the day, it's really about bringing the next woman along, right? Making sure that we don't forget that the woman behind needs to be there. So in terms of goals, in your mind, have you all made it based on what you shared tonight and the steps that you shared about rebooting, reclaiming, refocusing so that you can master your careers? do you think that you've mastered your careers, or do you still have goals that you would like to accomplish? And I'll start with you, Angela.
Oh, I'm a lifelong learner. I will always have goals and dreams that are bigger because that's what keeps me excited and that's what keeps me going. I may have to refine them or alter them or change them, but yeah, I think you're never too old to have goals. And I'm 53. I wrote my first book at 52. I mean, I wanted to be a writer my whole life. Now what's happening next, right? So always have goals, always have dreams.
Absolutely. And I'll just let you all talk. Anyone else want to raise the thought? What about you, Nicole?
I agree with Angela. I am goal driven. And so whenever I'm always kind of, all right, I did that. So now what? And I'm always trying to find a way to challenge myself and to do things different. And I appreciate the question, because the one thing that I'd like to really underscore with the women who joined us today is that all the women on this panel, we are all works in progress.
Yes.
It's easy to look at forums like this and think that, everybody has it all together all the time. We are just like you, and we are learning every single day. And so just know that we're evolving along with you. And if you aspire to achieve certain levels of success, you can do it. But just remember that every woman that you see and you're just like, she's just got it going on, you got it going on too. And she continue. And the reason why she's got it going on is because she continues to challenge herself. She wants to be better, and she's working to be her best self.
Excellent. I love it. Absolutely. And Jody.
Yes, she's right. Right on the money, both of you guys. I started to take my nutrition exam in December, and when the quarantine took place, I had no excuse. So I completed an 1,100 question exam and just got my certification this month.
Let's give her a hand. Yes.
And I won't stop there. I'm definitely goal driven. I've got to be like moving toward the next thing. Even my mom used to tell me when I was younger, she's like, can't you just slow down and enjoy it? And I do enjoy it, but I always want something to be working toward. And I don't know if that's just a trait that successful women possess.
Yes.
Because listening to everybody else, it seems to be a commonality among us. But yeah, we'll see what my next adventure will be. But I definitely continue to work towards it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Jackie?
Oh, I feel like a slacker. I feel like I'm like, when am I going to retire? When is this stuff over? I'm excited about watching and seeing my daughter graduate and what life looks like for her. I really want to get to the point where I can just enjoy the day in the moment without thinking about what I have to do tomorrow or next year. And it's not that I don't want to stop learning. It doesn't mean that I don't want to keep returning. I mean, I think the gift of service, I think I'll always have that passion and heart to want to give back. So I see that in my future. Even teaching, I've taught before. I love teaching. I started working on my doctorate. I never finished, and I don't think I will. But I do have an interest of teaching again, to end the story, and always mentor and always be available to speak and even write a book. Like, I'm just impressed. I think about writing a book all the time. I think about writing a children's book all the time. And I'm not there yet. I can't get to the point, and even in quarantine, to sit long enough to write notes and stuff. Me and Simone had talked about writing a book together for our future. So we're just praying on it. And I just know when God has it, he just always puts me where I need to be in my goals and pathways. So
absolutely.
That's where I am.
Awesome. Well, I have another question that actually three, they're coming in really fast here. This one is, what new things have you learned about yourself? And this is from Michelle Brown. And during this time that will help you be a better leader or help you in your respective areas. So have you learned anything new about yourself during this time? This one thing, I'll just make it quick because I got two. One thing you've learned about yourself, Nicole, anything?
I move too much. I move too much. I don't slow down. And so the slowdown has been really helpful for me. It helped me to understand that.
Absolutely. What about you, Jody?
I feel better when I incorporate raw foods into my diet.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Angela?
Journaling, my journaling practice has saved me through this craziness. If I didn't have that practice in place, I don't know where all the thoughts would have gone. So I'm glad that I had that as a habit.
I love it. And Jackie.
God, I'm such a slacker. I love Netflix binge.
I want to come hang out with you, Jackie.
So I'm like, I don't watch TV much. So Netflix binging is like the awesome thing ever to do.
Oh, me. And for me, I just love the silence. It's just been so wonderful. It's just been great because it's given me time to get back where I need to be, especially spiritually with God. It's just been wonderful.
Yeah.
And then I have this question is, how do you give yourself grace when you're struggling with being as productive as you were when things were normal? Like, how do you give yourself grace right now? That's a deep one, but I like it.
I can tell you that I try to think of myself the way that God would think of me.
Yes.
And that he gives us grace in every opportunity. And I think about that when I start to overjudge myself. I think, you know what, in God's eyes, I'm perfect and I can start fresh, because we all need a mental reset. We're hard on ourselves. None of us have ever been through anything like this ever in our lifetime. So however you're doing okay.
Absolutely. Well, I think I'm going to stop you right there because I have someone, and I think we need to answer it. Tamara saying, I'm trying to figure out my next. I'm feeling the pull to do something. So can you help us with that? Anybody want to talk about that? Because I mean, she's saying that she's feeling this pull. How do we help her?
What is her passion? What lights her up? What gives her joy? What would she do for free? You know, I always tell people, go back. What was the thing when you were a kid that you freaking loved? That's usually an indication of something that maybe you need to reflect back on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And multitasking, and I'm listening, but I'm looking at the question. So go ahead and talk, ladies.
I mean, I would add too, I mean, I this whole thing about wanting to write a book or win and just stop, I'm constantly praying. I think this time has really allowed me to just stop and take the time and just say, God, what do you want? And how do I do it? Like, I know you put it in me, but how do I do it? And just show me. I'm constantly saying that even as a commissioner and leading this conference, just show me. I got this board meeting. I have no clue what's going to lay out, but just show me, direct me, give it to me. He will. I just know he does because he's that faithful. If you're a believer.
Yes.
And whatever you believe in, you have to go back to the core of your mission. As we talked, I think Nicole said that earlier, like, what's your mission? What's your why?
Mm-hmm.
And let God evolve that for you.
Wow. Well, you know what, ladies, we're at the end of our time here. And I mentioned that it was going to go fast. In fact, the questions are still coming in. So I'd like to have the audience know that I'll try to go back through and answer some of the questions in the chat on Facebook. But I want to thank each one of you, Jody, for being here. I want to thank you, Angela, for being here, Commissioner, for being here, and Nicole. You guys are wonderful, powerful women that are going places. And I love the fact that you don't try to go there alone, that you support other women in doing that. And then we're reaching back to help the next generation. So that's who we are in this collective. And I'm sure we'll have you back in on at the cafe. I love the fact that we are at our own little cafe. And before I go, I want to make sure that our audience knows that we're bringing the summer issue of Career Master Magazine. It'll be out in June. We have some fabulous stories, especially as we've gone through COVID-19, to talk about how women are handling that. And so if you haven't not subscribed to the magazine, you can do that at www.careermaster.com. I also want to give a shout out to Bobbie Barnes. She is our 1,000th member of the Career Master Women's Leadership. Let's give her a hand. And her package is on her way. She's getting a Career Master hat, a t-shirt, a bag, the magazine subscription. She's getting it all. So we just want to congratulate her. And then last but not least, I'd like to thank our producer, Rasheem Barnett. Rasheem Barnett has his own company that helps companies like mine with production of not only this particular event, but he does all it of the background for media and much, much more. And his business is Prosperous Life. I believe I got that right. Prosperous Life, LLC. Is that right, Rasheem? I hope. And then our sponsor for this evening, we could not do this without corporate sponsors, is ITC Holdings out of Novi, Michigan. Is headquartered there. Thank you for being a partnership and having all of your women subscribe to our magazine. Isn't that wonderful?
Awesome.
So with that, we'll see you at the next. And thank you, ladies, for everything. Let's give ourselves a hand.
Thank you.
All right. That's it. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.